Hello and welcome. You open up the news any given day, and you're just hit with this wall of headlines. Wars, unbelievable new technologies, huge cultural shifts. It can all feel pretty chaotic, right? But what if it's not random at all? What if what we're seeing is actually part of a pattern, one that was laid out in ancient texts thousands of years ago? Today, we're going to dive into a worldview that connects our daily news directly to biblical prophecies, suggesting that the stage is being set for something big, an event some call the Rapture. So let's just get right to it. The big question: are we actually living in the end times? It's a heavy thought, for sure, but for a whole lot of people, this isn't some abstract idea anymore. It's the lens through which they see absolutely everything that's happening in the world today. Now, I want to be super clear about something. Our goal here is not to make predictions. Nope. We're here to understand a specific and really influential way of looking at the world. We're just going to explore how people who hold this view connect the dots between these ancient writings and our 21st century reality. So, where do we even begin? Well, the first big category of signs that believers point to is playing out right on the global stage. We're talking major geopolitical events, and specifically the nation of Israel. A passage that comes up again and again is from Matthew 24, where Jesus talks about wars and rumors of wars being a sign of the end. Proponents look at things like the war in Ukraine or the constant tension in the Middle East and see a direct parallel. And for them, it's not just that conflicts exist. We've always had conflicts. It's the incredible scale and the global ripple effects that just feel different this time. And get this, it's not just religious folks who feel like we're on a knife's edge. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, these are secular experts. They set their famous doomsday clock to just 90 seconds to midnight. That's the closest it has ever been to global catastrophe. And you know what they're citing? Nuclear threats, war, disruptive tech. In their own way, they're pointing to the exact same thing, this unprecedented convergence of global threats. But within this whole prophetic framework, one nation stands above all the rest: Israel. It's often called the super sign, or even God's timepiece. The belief is that its very existence today is a modern miracle, and it's the central gear that the entire end-time scenario has to turn around. And from that perspective, you can see this clear timeline of prophetic milestones getting checked off. It all kicks off in 1948 with the impossible rebirth of the nation. Then, boom, 1967, Jerusalem is back under Israeli control. And even more recently, the Abraham Accords in 2020 are seen as setting the stage for a prophesied peace treaty, a treaty that the Bible warns will come right before sudden destruction, even as everyone is shouting peace and safety. And this is where it gets really tangible. According to prophecy, a third temple has to be built in Jerusalem. It's the location for some key end times events. Now, for centuries, that seemed absolutely impossible. But today, the Temple Institute in Jerusalem has already recreated the secret vessels. They've woven the priestly garments, and they are actively training priests. They've even bred the specific red heifers needed for the purification rites. These are real-world physical preparations happening right now for an event that's central to this whole narrative. Okay, so from geopolitics, we're going to shift gears to technology. The next layer of signs, according to these sources, is the creation of a system for global economic control, a system that was literally impossible in any other generation but ours. This verse from the book of Revelation is absolutely central to the argument. Just think about it. It describes a future where you can't participate in the economy. You can't buy, you can't sell without a specific mark. For nearly 2,000 years, the idea of one single entity controlling all commerce on Earth sounded like pure fantasy. The question is, does it still? So, this is the crucial point, the parallel between that ancient text and what you see today. On one side, you have this prophecy about a mark on your hand or forehead. And on the other side, well, you have Amazon's pay with your palm system. You have people voluntarily getting microchips put in their hands to buy things. And you got biometric facial scans everywhere. What sounded like science fiction for centuries is now just, it's called fintech. Now, according to the source material, the pandemic played a really interesting role in all this. They argue it wasn't the mark itself, but it acted as a kind of global dress rehearsal. It very quickly normalized both the technology and the public's acceptance of systems where your ability to buy, sell, or travel was tied to a scannable pass that proved you were in compliance. And then there's AI. The book of Revelation also talks about an image of the beast that can actually speak and enforce the rules of this system. So from this point of view, the explosive rise of advanced AI, systems that can talk, that can reason, and could potentially control automated systems, is seen as the very technology that could finally fulfill that very strange and specific prophecy.
All right, so the next set of signs isn't about global politics or high tech. It's about the very fabric of our society, our values, our morals, and what some see as the potential for a massive global deception.
So, the Apostle Paul wrote that description of what people would be like in the last days almost 2,000 years ago. Proponents of this view just ask a simple question. When you hear that list, does it sound like a pretty accurate description of our current cultural climate? The Bible also gives these comparisons, warning that the end will be like the days of Noah, which it says were filled with violence, and like the days of Lot, marked by what it describes as widespread sexual immorality. The source material draws a straight line from those ancient warnings to what they see happening today, a global celebration of values that are often the opposite of biblical ethics. Okay, now here is where things take a pretty surprising turn. This cultural analysis also includes this idea of a great deception. And a sign that's getting a ton of attention in these circles is the recent mainstreaming of UFOs, or UAPs, with actual congressional hearings and Pentagon reports. So what on earth is the connection? Well, researcher L.A. Marzulli sums up a popular theory like this. The idea is that the whole UFO phenomenon is being set up to be used as a great deception. In this scenario, after millions of Christians suddenly vanish in the Rapture, a prepackaged alien narrative would be rolled out to explain it all away, claiming they came down and removed the unenlightened people so the rest of humanity could evolve.
So, we've looked at the geopolitical situation, the technology, the culture, but the absolute core argument here isn't about any single one of these signs. It's about the fact that, for the very first time in history, they are all happening at once.
And this all hinges on that key belief we mentioned at the start, the pre-tribulation rapture. See, this is the idea that believers will be taken off the earth before a final 7-year crisis period begins. And that's exactly why the focus is on the stage being set. They believe all this setup is the sign of their imminent departure before the main show even starts. Proponents will stress this over and over. In the past, sure, some of these signs might have appeared, but always in isolation. For centuries, you might have had a controlling empire, but you didn't have the nation of Israel. For millennia, you had the promise of Israel, but you didn't have the technology for a global system. The puzzle pieces were just never on the board at the same time. And this is the critical point. They argue that our generation is the very first in all of human history to see all of the signs. The geopolitical, the technological, the cultural, the spiritual, all of them converging on a global scale at the exact same time. And to them, that is the undeniable signal that this time is different. And this quote from commentator Jan Markell just captures the entire perspective perfectly. To the outside world, it looks like global chaos. But if you're looking through this prophetic lens, all that chaos is actually seen as an orderly, predictable alignment. Things aren't falling apart. They are falling into place for a prophesied conclusion. And so, that brings us right back to where we started. This framework completely reframes the global narrative. It argues that what we're seeing isn't just a random series of escalating crises, but a purposeful alignment. That events aren't falling apart, but falling into place. It's a powerful idea, and it leaves us with one final question for you. When you look at the world today, what do you see?